Comb my hair.
Word.
Pero loco. Okay. Hello, hello, hello. Got it? On the wrong screen. Good. Okay. So again, we're gonna do door schedules, and we're gonna do takeoffs. So door schedules, of course, are one of the most ubiquitous things that you'll find on a set of drawings. Doors could be incredibly complicated, depending on the size of the job. Even a small job can have a lot of nuance for doors. I'm not sure if we talked about this yet from last class, but basically, when you're talking about doors, you have wood doors, metal doors, doors with glass in them, also known as glazing. The frame material is different, the thicknesses, the rating, the species or the color, depending on if it's stained or if it's painted. And that's before we even get to the good stuff, the hardware sets, right? So hardware is a whole other thing. Who here has had the privilege or misfortune of having a hardware submittal in their lives? So a hardware submittal is a document that basically will painstakingly look at every single door in a set of drawings and give you sort of the makeup of why we're using certain materials. So when we say hardware on a door, typically we're talking about the hinges, the lever set or the handle, the silencers on the frame. Does it have a closer? Is there a kick plate? What's the strike on the frame? Is there any card readers or anything like that? If it's an outdoor door, does it have a gasket? A drip edge? All this information on what on a basic plan looks like just a door. I mean, this door is innocuous looking, but the one next to it could have a completely different hardware set. Okay? So if we look at the hardware set for the door that we have in this building right here, basically I have a closer, surface mounted, I have a lever set, and I have a kick plate. It looks like there's a gasket. Come here and you look at the door one more time. You'll see that there's 100% gasketing on all parts of the frame. Should we go see it? This is called a mortise lock set, meaning that the whole thing is kind of plugged into the entirety of the door as opposed to the lever's just this little piece, the locking mechanism. Very common in today's world. You actually have a door hardware set that from inside, everyone get up for a minute. This is worth explaining. Trust me. Just like when I showed you the fire shutters, I think this will be worth noting. So you probably notice when you come in here, there's a different action from when you leave the room versus when you come into the room. So from the inside, in order to leave, you'll see that when I open the door, it actually lets me turn it and it retracts the latch. That's called a strike. This is called a latch. You probably might not have even thought twice about it. But the strike is not engaged. The card reader is electrified to the strike. So there's no way to get access. That will be red. In order for this to be popped open, I have to swipe. If it's not activated, it doesn't pop the strike. So the hardware set is permanently locked from the outside. This should never be unlocked. Even though it has a cylinder, it's never used. From the inside, you always have to have the ability for free exit. So even if that's red, God forbid there's a fire, you should be able to swipe, push the door open, and escape. You may not go back. First. And this is something that you have to think about for every door in your building.
And we have a gasket.
And you have a gasket. I didn't point that out. Yes. So what's the point of me showing you that? Well, to the untrained eye, you would think, oh, I have what's called an entry lock set. Right? An entry lock set means during business hours, I want to unlock the door. In this case, you know what you use typically for that type of lock set? A storage lock set. A storage lock set is designed to be permanently locked until it doesn't have to be locked. Okay? So in that little case, I'd have what's called an electric strike, and I'd have a storage lock set. Now, there are some doors that are magnetized. I'm sure you've noticed that. You try to open it, it kind of gives a little bit, but like at the top it's stuck. That would be called a magnet release. Anyway, what's my point? My point is no two doors in your job are usually going to be identical unless they're in a series of other doors. So in your office suite, if I have a stairwell door, I have office doors, I have a conference room door, I have a pantry door, a bathroom door, doors to exit the outside. All these different types of doors will have different hardware sets. We're not going to go into the nitty-gritty in this class about naming all of them because it's not particularly important for you to do that. But I do want you to understand that this is a huge part of where Harkins Builders has told me about 20% of their RFIs are related to doors and hardware. It's a huge problem, okay? If you're very good at identifying the miscommunications and nuances of door hardware, that will give you an edge in your career. You're trying to interview somewhere, oh, I love door hardware. They're like, good. Somebody has to. No? Anyway, any questions about that? No? Okay, so if we, let me open my monitor. So for the sake of just practice and keeping things nice and clean, go ahead and open up a new project. We're going to keep it simple for a minute. If you need to lower the blinds, I trust you to do that, Agustin. I don't know what you can see or you can't see.
You guys see? Yeah.
You sure? Okay.
If it gets any darker than this, I feel like I'm knocked out.
Or should it be like natural light too?
Okay, so let's start with the basics. Go ahead and no matter what the size of your building, go ahead and make 4 walls and add some doors to your walls. Should take a few minutes. So when you add a door to your model, how many options do you have? Are they all just single flush doors? When you go to this properties tab?
No.
No. So what kind of options do you have?
Double flush, single, yeah, and then
For exterior, silver 2 by.
Okay. So you'll see there's a bunch of different types of options for you if you go to your US Imperial, English Imperial, and you go to door types on your project browser for your folders, if you go to commercial, you'll see you have exterior, passage, singles, doubles. You actually have one that says revolving, at least if you have the same things I do. Revolving doors are like $20,000 before you add them to your job, just be aware. Then of course you have residential doors that have like panels on them. The point is, you can load all sorts of different types. They're not letting me add it because they feel like I'm in the wrong thing, so let's just do this. So add a few various types. I don't care which ones you do, but make it a little bit of a variety. Okay, so after you do that, we're gonna go to annotate per Augustine's direction. Go to tag all, go to door tags, press apply, and it should magically have numbered your door tags. Okay. So now the question is, do you have a door schedule already loaded in your project? If you do, you'll see it on your project browser under schedules. And it'll look something like this.
So you said after we tag all them, where do we go?
After you tag them all, see if you have a door schedule already loaded. If you don't, I'll show you how to make one. You can go to a project browser and see. You do?
Scroll right down to schedules and quantities, and then press schedule typical. And press schedule.
Depending on your model that you picked, you might also have them sheeted. I do here. If I go to schedules on A13, you'll see I actually have a door schedule rating here. So the question is, what do you do with this information? When it gets printed on a sheet, you actually have the ability to kind of toggle and make it paginate in a way that makes sense. If you go back to your model on your first floor level, you'll notice when you click on your properties, a single flush door like this doesn't necessarily have all the information in it about what it is. So if you know that it's a certain type of door with a certain, material, right now it says door panel, and it says, height and all that kind of stuff is in here. But if I go to, let's see, where is it? So here under door frame, when I click it, or door panel, this particular door doesn't have, just says class. Doesn't say, anything much about it. But when you render it, it will render it as a birch door with this kind of color and have this identity notes to it. So to me, this is decent enough where I don't necessarily have to go out of my way to add more information. But when you go to your schedule again, you'll see that it has these areas that could be input if you wanted. And a lot of times what architects will do is they'll go ahead and fill it in for those particular doors just to make sure they're the ones in control of it. Just in case the model is wrong, they'll have the last right to update those things. So one of the key concerns when you're doing doors are what are the finish what's the fire rating of the door, and what's a hardware set. Hardware sets are usually going to be written by way of like you do hardware, and then you'll like give it a number or a letter, and then that will be on another schedule somewhere else. But frames, just the same as doors, could be complicated. It could be a metal frame, it could be a wood frame, it could be, frameless if it's, say, a storefront door or a glass door, things of that nature. So this is the mark, and this is the type. So you'll see here the type of the door. I have two doors that are the same type, even though they have different marks. So this is where it gets kind of confusing, because basically this door and this door under properties will be the same. When I click this door, it should be different, and this door should be different. When I click this door, you'll see it says it's Mark 3. I click this door, it says it's Mark 4. This one says Mark 5, so on. But if I go to edit type, it says type mark. Now this is kind of a confusing thing, but depending on the job, you might have a different way of naming the doors. So for example, if I have an apartment building that has 200 units in it, I don't necessarily want to name every single unique door its own number, when I know that every single apartment front door has the same exact door type, right? It's either a left-handed door or a right-handed door, but they all have a peephole, they all have a threshold, they're all made out of metal, they all have closers. Then in those instances, I might want to just name all of my projects that same door type, right? And so if I did that, then I might want to go by the type mark instead. And Revit allows you to do that by using your type mark instead. So if I wanted to do something like that, I could actually go to my door schedule, and I could hide these numbers and just rename my doors to match what the type mark is. Now you'll see I could actually go back to my floor plan, go to my door. Whoops, I didn't mean to double click it. What should happen is if I go to properties and I delete the mark, it'll just be blank. So if I'm going to do that, I'd want to match what that mark would be. And I'd just call that door 8. Okay, so enough of that, kind of confusing. So if we go to our schedules again, the idea is that in our buildings, we should have a way of pretty much naming and giving these things data. So the most important thing you'll see here is whether the door is 6'8" or 7 foot. I'm sure many of you were just kind of putting doors in the project, not even sure what the door was. So once you go to your projects and you went ahead and said, give everything a number, if you go to your door schedule, you'll actually see it all tabulated. Now let's say in your model, this doesn't come up and look the same way. How do I edit it? Well, just like any other schedule we've done in the past, if you're under properties, you can pick what fields are in there. So I'm showing you how to do that now. So if I go to my bar here and it says fields, I could pick the mark, the width, the thickness, all the way through any comments I might have, and that's how I'd make a door schedule. You following, Carlos?
Yeah.
So the reason why I had you do it easily on your one-off floor plan now is I didn't want it to be too confusing if you were to do it to your whole project. But basically, if it has a very simple list, that's as simple as it will look. But when you do it to every door in your project, it's going to be this massive schedule. Okay? Does that make sense? So go ahead and, for the sake of doing that, go to your projects and see if you can make a door schedule for your project.
What exactly did you add in the field section?
I didn't do anything because it was preloaded. But the fields that are typical on a door schedule are these fields.
Should we copy that? Make it the same?
I mean, again, I would say yes. These are the most common ones.
Once we create it,
What's that?
once we create it, do you want us to edit it a certain way?
No. Just want to make sure you can create it. I'll go around. Thank you.
Not the same kind of door.
No, they have a kick plate on the inside. So it shouldn't be, usually you have it on the swing outside, but typically kick plates are up where you want to mop the floor, and they don't have one on the mop side. You got it all to go? You got it on there?
I mean,
Yeah, a lot of doors.
yeah, like two.
Okay.
If on the drop down, there's no like options.
What dropped down? You have to type it in. Oh, we have to type it in. And then once it's typed in for one, it will kind of like Excel preload if you have to do it. So type in like wood and you'll see it will do it for the other ones.
Okay.
Oh, you actually got some family names on there.
Yeah.
Inside.
I would have the penalty against the level, just so we don't get confused.
Oh, cool, look at you.
And I should probably get rid of most of this stuff.
You added levels. That's
Did
pretty
you do this
shrewd.
on project?
Yeah, it's a good project.
Oh, I should do that.
That's why I asked you that.
Oh, I thought you wanted it.
For like a smooth, like 2 seconds, I was like, I think you saw it when you asked me if I'm still there. I I was like nodding off, and then I like, just woke up
I'm
completely.
sorry you're so tired.
Nah, I'm up now.
Well, I had some of that Starbucks coffee over the weekend. It's got a nice, like, hint of chicory.
Does it taste like an extra credit?
No, I don't,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't believe in extra points, so.
I should rate on some reserve roasts. It's like the fancy, like each bag. I mean, I get it all for free, but like, they have like these reserve black.
Are you sure you get it for free, or you sure you just don't have a five-figure discount?
If it was 5 fingers, I would not be risking a bag each week.
My friend lost his job at Starbucks because he took carrot cake they were gonna throw out. They were literally about to throw it in the dumpster, so he took it and they found out and they fired him.
That's weird, cause I mean,
He's like, I eat carrot cake every night.
the night closing shift, they usually get to keep everything. Or well, I mean now depending on the manager, you technically have to throw it on donation bags, but we don't give it to anyone. No one comes to pick it up, so we end up throwing it out.
Or eating it.
And then some people, that bag goes into the trash or it goes into someone's trunk. You'll never know.
Right, no, I don't disagree with that.
It's
Better
crazy.
than-
It's crazy how much food it is. I used to work at Chalk, and every night I would take the food home. Like
Chopped, like the salad
the
place?
salad place, the one in is it exit 1. Every night I would take the food home. My whole family would eat with everything that I would take home. It was massive. We were still throwing away food, but they ended up telling me that I couldn't do it anymore because apparently there was some legal stuff about like not paying for food and taking it for free.
That's not good.
Yeah, it's absolutely dumb because that food is getting thrown out. It's like it's such a waste.
Yeah, you got the schedule figured out?
Is this what you do?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a load.
Okay.
That's it. Is it nice?
So 150 to 170 something bucks a square foot, as much as a building.
It depends what you're building.
I don't really need the jam or the head or any of this stuff, right?
It depends, but I'd say for you now.
So now we're gonna figure out how much it costs.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about takeoffs after I know Padilla got his door schedule to load.
Yep,
Just wanna make sure he's not left high and dry. Yeah, what? What's that?
rainforest.
Oh! Interessante. That's where the document scanner is. Okay, so we're gonna go back to your other tab with the original model that only had 4 walls and some doors in it. And we're gonna talk about doing a very cursory area takeoff. So one of the things I talked about when Adam Latinski was doing his lecture was the issue with BIM is that it's garbage in, garbage out, okay? I'm sure you might have heard of this concept in data science, which is, when people go AI is gonna be so great, well, the question's gonna be, what is the quality of the information that you're giving Revit for Revit to then regurgitate and give back to you? So one of the things we have to be mindful of is that Revit can be very powerful if you know how to leverage the technology. One of the things that's pretty interesting about Revit is that within Instant, you can pretty much populate a model's square footage of walls. However, you have to double check that you're doing the correct size of walls, right? I mean, it's easy to just take it for granted. If I just have an unconnected, from level 1 to unconnected, and I don't set the right wall heights and stuff like that, you might get a false sense of, oh, I know the exact price of the job. So with that corollary out of the way, let's just assume for now, we're out in a field, we have no need for exterior walls, and I just want to build 4 interior walls that have a stud and some drywall in them. There's no rating associated with them or anything like that. So going back to our walls, if we have our 4 walls drafted, click them and make sure we are making it a interior style partition. Okay? Doesn't really matter which one you pick, in my humble opinion. Just pick an interior style partition. Good? Has everyone done that? Yeah, make sure those 4 walls are interior style walls, not exterior walls. So then we're going to go to View, or View tab, and we're going to select Schedules. There's a caret that goes down, and we're going to pick Material Takeoff. Okay. It's going to give you a dialog box that's going to be pretty intimidating. So we can break down the box very briefly. The box is pretty much saying, what is the category of the material you wish to do a takeoff on? You could actually technically pick multiple categories, but for the sake of our simplicity, we're going to just do one. You'll also notice it says project phase. So I could have a job in which I have existing conditions and I want to know what it is to remediate some walls. I can have a job that's all new construction, or I can have a job that's both, which would be called project completion, right? Because that's basically what it's going to look like when you have the existing and the new all together. So in this case, we're just going to keep it where it was, which was phase project completion. You'll see on here you have a myriad of things to pick: windows, topography, sprinklers, ramps, doors. We want to go to walls. So under walls, you'll see they have a caret that then allows you to do wall sweeps. We just want to keep it to basic walls. Then we can click OK.
You put new construction or existing?
I said project completion.
Is there a third option for project completion?
I had it.
I don't have it, I only have it.
Do you guys have it?
New construction.
Probably because you put one of your items as existing.
I don't think so. That's a good theory. No, they're all new.
New construction.
It's weird that you guys don't have that option. It says project completion. You sure you don't have that?
Yeah, I only have this.
Okay, then we'll just do new construction then. You guys have to be such hipsters about it. How about you, said? Did you have project completion?
No, it just has existing and new.
Jeez.
Alright, so we go for a new?
Yeah, new. So now that you're at the material takeoff properties dialog box, you'll see that there's no shortage of things you can discuss when talking about a wall. A lot of these are pretty esoteric and not very relevant to what we need them to be. So we're not going to really pay attention to those. So what we want to do is we want to know the family and type. So when we add something, we'll click this guy here, the Add Parameters tab. We want to know the material area. I think I'm just going to do family. That's one of them for reasons. And And then someone said it already, but the cost. There's a specific one we have to pick.
Material costs? or-
Correct, material cost. Is that here? Do we see it? Okay. Okay. So we should have these four things: the family and type, the materials area, and the materials cost. Everyone have that?
No.
Let's get to it.
How do you, my thing doesn't have like the option to,
You don't have the little arrow thing here?
no.
Oh. Are you in the wrong one? Okay, well, we need to pick walls first, then press OK. Now you're here. Okay, so the one thing we have to do is we have to be able to calculate these things in order to come up with an actual cost. So make sure I'm doing it correctly. This is so unintuitive that I'm worried that I'm screwing it up. So let me just make sure. Okay.
What about count?
Huh?
What about count?
Count? No, we're not doing that. Okay, so material costs. Now I have to go to add a calculated parameter. So you'll see here it has the function symbol, fx. And what I want to call this is total cost. It's just going to be a common number because these are like structural, infrastructure, blah, blah, blah. We don't want that. But the type of number is going to be a currency. Meaning we want it to be represented in dollars. So now in order for me to make a formula, I have to use these three dots. And it's going to ask, what do you want to use? Typically, when you're doing these formulae, you're going to see that it's going to be material, whatever it is. And that's how you're going to come up with a number. So in other words, what are we trying to do right now? If I want to know the total cost of a wall, and I know a square foot number for the cost of drywall, I'm going to need to know what the area is going to be. I need to multiply it by that cost per square foot, right? Does that make sense? So I'll go ahead and on the whiteboard show you in a minute, but let's do it in digitally. If I take the material area, now I want to do space, asterisk, which is the international symbol for multiplication, space, triple dot, material cost. Okay? Now, this formula is rather smart, pretty smart. I'm saying I want the square foot, and I want to multiply that by the dollars per square foot. Okay? Now, the issue here is that Revit's kind of stupid. And it doesn't know that this is really my units, which is dollars per square foot. Right? We know that's what, if I said drywall was 50 cents per square foot, that's what it would mean. But all Revit's going to do is understand, well, I have a unit of square feet, and I'm multiplying it to a unit of dollars. So I'm not sure if anyone's taken physics, but one of the things you always have to do in physics is make sure your units match. If you're ever worried you're not doing the question correctly, you see if the units are correct at the end. Does anyone know that concept? Where it's like if I had, cubic meters, and I multiply that by, square meters, and that's supposed to equal, meters to the fifth, and there's no such measurement, it's gonna be cubic feet, I probably screwed something up. I shouldn't be getting to that unit. Well, the problem is if I took square feet and multiplied it by dollars, I'm gonna have $1 square foot. That's not a real thing, right? We know that. We understand this intuitively. No one has $1 square foot. So we have to tell Revit, okay, we want to divide this into 1 square foot. Now I promise you, this is going to be the most annoying part of this, because if you enter this in 1 iota wrong, it will give you a myriad of errors. Okay, and I'll show you this fact in live. I'll show you it live. So if I go to space, divvy up 1 square foot, I press OK, it worked, right? Magic, not a problem. Okay. Now, if I were to do this again, and I go to total cost, currency, and I do the same thing rapidly. Area, multiplication, times cost. Now I do divided by square foot. The following is not a known schedule field. Okay, whoops, I made a mistake. 1 square foot. Now it worked. That 1 was quintessential. You needed to know you were doing it by 1 square foot. If you did feet to the power 2, that wouldn't have worked either. It wouldn't have recognized that. It had to be an SF. Okay?
Is there a space between one and that?
Doesn't matter. I just did it both ways to see if it worked. As long as it's divided 1 SF, that's what matters. So can you all do that? You all did that? So now we should have a new field called total cost. Capiche? Okay. So, then I go to OK, and I have this doohickey created. Now, you'll see there's a lot of stuff here. Some of it is superfluous because it doesn't add up to a value. But the first thing is the family and the type. And then it's the material of that wall's area. Then you have the cost per area. And then you have the total cost. So I can sort this a bunch of different ways by going to edit. And I can sort it by area. And you'll see that on the area calculations, I have walls of differing types. But they're all slightly different. But you'll see I have a square footage calculation for 4 of them that don't really add up to any cost, and then 4 of them that do. Does anyone have any idea why that might be? So if I go back to my level, and I click the wall that I had done the editing to, here's the one thing. You guys don't have a value. All of your stuff equals 0, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the reason why. Because your walls don't have a property associated for the cost of them. So how do we edit that? I go to edit type, and I have to go to the structure to edit the structure of the wall. Make sure it's the wall that you specified in your project that you're using. And you'll see here we have the finish and the finish of both sides of our wall. If I click the gypsum wallboard on this side, you'll see I had already added that the cost under the identity tab is 50 cents or 0.5. If I do it over here, you'll see it does the same thing because it attaches that value to gypsum wallboard.
It's 50 cents for what?
Well, that's exactly why we had to modify it on the formula. It's just 50 cents. We have to give it the value on the back end, which is why it's become 50 cents per square foot, because we added that value.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So go ahead and modify it by going to your material and adding the value under cost of 50 cents. I'm sorry?
Where did you add the 50 cents?
You gotta click on the wall, properties, edit type, edit, gypsum wallboard, identity, cost.
So what if I, instead of going into that part, go back to edit type, please? What if there was an option on like that screen that said, oh yeah, I scrolled all
Because
the
you
way
didn't
down.
click. You gotta click a wall first.
Yeah, and then I scrolled down to cost. And then I put it there. Right above the default.
Yeah, this guy?
Yeah. What if I put it there?
Well, let's test that out. If I made that 1 instead, nothing changed. Why? Why do you think?
Good question.
There you go. So you'll see the cost of the wall is not the same thing as the cost of the area of the material of the wall. So what does that mean? Well, maybe you don't want to just price the actual drywall. Maybe you want to price the linear feet of the stud, right? So it's all about how you're coming up with the number. If you found out that I could come up with a linear or a square footage cost of an entire wall assembly, then you could do that, Carlos.
Okay.
But we're looking just at the drywall cost right now. Does that make sense?
Yep. And what if I still end up with a couple of zeros? Like half of them have a number now.
Yeah, I know. So that's what I'm trying to help figure out. So give me a second. Everyone got that? To the point where they have now numbers under their total cost?
No.
No?
I'm trying right now to edit, I can see the part where I can change the cost under identity. Under which one do you change it? I have 7 finishes.
Yeah, you're doing the drywall. Do you not see what I did?
One more time, please.
Yes, you're welcome. Edit type, edit, this finish here, drywall board. Identity drywall board, 50 cents.
Okay.
So one of the things that's mystifying, and I can't tell you exactly why it's doing it, is why you'll have some values that are redundant or don't equal anything. Basically, what I want to do is ignore anything that has 0 in it as a takeoff, because that's not really giving me any benefit, right? So if anyone's familiar with Excel, there's a language here, and I did double check the math. So here's the deal. If I have 2 surfaces of drywall on a wall that's about 645 feet long, or square feet rather, so let's just double check the math again. Here I have about a 46-foot long wall. So if I took 46 feet, multiply it by 14, which is the height of my wall, I'm about 650 square feet, right? Now, I have 2 sides with drywall on them. So I have to multiply it by 2. So really what's happening in this job is that I have 2 walls that are about the same length on one side, which is about 2,500. Now on this side of the wall, I have 72 times 14 times 2 times 2. So really in my job, I have about that many square feet of drywall. So I went ahead and double checked my math a little bit. And really, as long as these numbers should add up close to that amount, I should be on track. It's not going to let me do it, of course. So 1291, 1302, 1856, 2016. And you'll see here it's close. So the math checks out, right? Even though Revit's doing the math for me, it shouldn't be so silly as to that this number is way off. So the question is, if I deleted these guys or hid them, am I missing anything? And the answer is no. So I can't explain why they're here, but luckily for me, under properties, I could go to filter, edit, and basically it's a very easy edit. If I have something that says the total cost is 0, I could just go to, I want you to filter it if the total cost is 0. And, whoops, I want it to do, does not equal 0. And now I'll see all of that. So the next step is, how do I organize this information so it doesn't look so messy? And I mean, there's actually something, I can actually tabulate the information. So because of Carlos, I'm the one, I added this cost thing. So first things first, I want to get rid of that. So under fields, I could press the red arrow, get it away. So I made it simpler. Then I could go to formatting or appearance, or sorting rather. And I could sort it based on a myriad of things. But I do want to calculate the total. And I want to do a header and a blank line. Then I should be able to start to break these things out and look a little bit differently. I did that wrong. Oops. It's always unintuitive. So, even though I'm struggling with this one. Family type, none. So if I want to add up all of the cost, so it's not just breaking it up per wall, I could go to total cost, and I could go calculate totals. That's all I have to do under formatting, in theory. And it will spit out a number on the bottom. So if I'm looking for the raw material cost, right, not the labor or anything, I just went ahead and said a room that's about this big, interior walls, 72 by 46 feet. The raw material cost per the data today at the market rate should be about $3,000 and change just to buy that material. And that's your calculation. Now, again, trash in, trash out, right? So if I go to level 1 and I go to properties, or I click here on my properties, and I'm like, oh, it's unconnected at 14 feet. Whoops, I meant it to be 10 feet. Well, now I go back to my project takeoff, and the project cost has radically changed. It's now $2,200. So the variables are live, which is what makes it pretty cool, right? So if an architect makes changes and you have these things in your workflow, you're able to kind of get the numbers updated. Does that make sense? Is that cool or no? I mean, this is supposed to be the cooler part.
Amazing.
If it's accurate, then why is this not included when you're trying to set a job for bid? Wouldn't that theoretically have your bids come in like a tighter set of numbers?
I don't know for GC, I don't know. You got, you tell me. You ask Ronley why they don't do it.
No, I'm just surprised that like owners don't require the architects to post like that number, square foot, not the total cost.
Yeah, I understand, the square footage of the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know either. I can easily do it for them if I want it. It's the benefit of Revit. You can actually pull this up pretty fast. So, in theory, because I taught you the bare bones, you can do this with anything. So, I could, for your door schedule, for example, do it based on quantity. So let's do the thought experiment. I want to do a takeoff of the quantity of doors in my jobs. Okay? And I know I have a myriad of different types of door types. But if I can isolate what those types of doors are, give those types of door a cost, and I can take a quantity of those doors, I should really get a print on what's the value of each of those types of doors. Restated, I have two types of doors on a job. Storefront exterior doors and interior wood doors. Okay? If I have 5 exterior storefront doors, I take 5, multiply by the unit cost of the door, and I have 10 interior wood doors. I take 10 as a quantity and multiply it to the cost of the wood door. I add them together. I should, in theory, know the cost of the doors. Correct? So let's go ahead and do this thought experiment. On this little side job that we just did for these little numbers, we have some doors. And we already talked about how we have different door types. So if we go to the level and we click on the door and we go to edit type, the question is going to be, if we go to door material, can we go ahead and say that a wood panel door has a certain cost? Okay, let's say that the interior wood door has a cost of $400. And let's say that the metal one I have here is going to be a different cost. This one also says it's metal or wood, though. Oh, but it has a different cost. So let's say this one's $800. Okay, you can pick whatever doors you want in your model because we don't all have the same doors. But the bottom line is I have two different doors now with two different prices. Okay, so let's just go through the critical thinking capacities. First things first, under view, we have to pull up again another schedule because it technically is a schedule, but it's called an area material takeoff. Brock Tompkins is calling, and it's causing error. What does that mean, the turn off? You want me to accept it? Who's Brock Tompkins? That's a cool name. Huh? I'm worried about it. He's interrupted the class.
Sorry about that.
It's fine. I'll forgive you soon. So, if you go to that same dialog box, remember, with the walls, and now what do you think we pick instead? Indeed. Para la puerta. Okay, so now we want to do, remember, not cost. We want to do material hyphen cost. Material colon cost. We want to do family and family type. Always. Now what do you think we want to do differently this time as opposed to material area? Why don't we try something different? Why don't we do count? So now the question's going to be, will it let you, in your formula, if I did total cost, multiply something by just a count? I don't know. I'm doing this live with you. It won't. So that's going to be the question. How do you do that?
No.
Nah, bruh. Interesting. Might not be able to do it that way. Sorry about what? That was barely an interruption. Yeah, so this is where you start to learn the nuances of what's easier versus not so easy to do. So I'm trying to disentangle a way where you could, in theory, look at the total cost based on something other than just the count. One thing you could do is you could technically do it by square foot, just like you did with a wall. Even though that seems kind of silly, right? You could do a square foot of a door and say, okay, if I know that I have, a door that costs $400, most doors are what, 3x7? It's about 21 square feet. 420 is what? About 20. Be $20 a square foot. So you could do it that way, even though it seems kind of stupid. But because it is about engineering it, that's something that you could do. So it's not so stupid. But then you'd have to adjust your values on the project. You'd have to go back to level 1, go back to your properties, make your number for your doors based on per square foot number, which I'll do 40 for that, and then 20 for this. And if you go back, again, anytime you want to edit this, all you have to do is go to the schedule and you can click fields and it gets you back to this menu.
You have the cost, right?
Yeah, so I have both, right. So it'd be total cost times currency, and similar to before, cost, asterisk, area, divided by 1 square foot. Whoops. And you'll see again, it's going to do it by instance. So your numbers are still going to be separated out. Now in theory, you could add as a field here your type mark. If you add your type mark, I think, you could sort it based on that. And in theory, you could I think you could combine those. This is where you'd have to do grand totals. You do that by going to appearance, formatting. I go to total cost. I calculate totals. It'll add up all the numbers. So basically, you'll see here on my screen now, I have exterior doors that are adding up to 1813. I have restroom doors that are adding up to 979. Now you'll notice something though, it does say there's 10 total of these things, which is not true. So you have to make sure you look at your drawing and make sure that they're all adding what's actually there. But if I were to, take these doors and just multiply them, and then go back to the door takeoffs, that data should again change pretty much live.
Why is it so bad? That was 14.
Yes, because I started the model and just deleted things. So basically, they show up on my door schedule, even though they're not really there. So in order to deal with that, you have to do this. You have to go to your normal door schedule, go to properties, itemize every instance. Where's my change mark? Hold on. So there should be one that says. I don't know why it's showing so many doors, honestly, because there really should only be these 6. Like you said, they're showing 14. And I didn't hide any. And that's why people don't use Revit for takeoffs, because I don't know why those would be there. And that's kind of the liability that an architect would have, right? I have no idea why. I think what happened was I made a bunch of doors earlier, and when I deleted them, it still has like a residue on the model. You know, I'm wondering if there's something here in plain sight. So one piece of data that we don't have for our models, for our projects, is a room schedule, which we did talk about last semester. That whenever you have a room and you make a schedule, the room schedule is useful for giving you information about the flooring finishes, the wall finishes, the ceiling, etc. So what I think I want to do for your homework tonight is I want you to use what you learned about putting together schedules. Do a room schedule for your building, because the door schedule is pretty much what it is. And then also do takeoffs of your walls, drywall amount. Figure out how much raw cost for drywall based on what we talked about today. I think I want to give you one more. I think brick. Who cares if brick is a facade? Your brick, CMU, brick.
Have both.
Well, we're gonna take whatever material you feel comfortable with that you have a significant number of, and that's what you're gonna do a takeoff of. You can Google what you think the square foot number unit cost would be, it'll be covered with that. But basically, I want that to be your focus, is trying to figure out how to do this stuff. Okay? Any questions for me? It's 5 o'clock already. Yeah,
How do you add the total at the end, where you have,
waiting for someone to ask. Okay.
you go fast, you go fast.
You have a question? So when you're adding up the totals, let's go back to the walls. You see this doohickey here now? We get there by going to properties, appearance, oops, no, formatting, sorry. Under formatting, total cost under the field, when you click that, you could go to the bottom here, and it says calculate totals instead of no calculation. You click calculate totals. And then that will show up. Does that make sense?
Awesome beans.
Okay. It's it's time to go. Any questions for me?
Are we having our next class in this room?
I don't know. I don't think I left the class saying whether we would do that. We didn't agree to that, right? I think I asked you as a class and not everyone agreed. But I might be misremembering.
You might be mis.
Oh, wait. Weren't we down a person? We didn't have a vote?
That was the issue.
Cause I was a no vote.
I think they're right. I think that's how ethical I was. Yes. I said I needed unanimous agreement. Are you in agreement?
No vote.
You still no vote? You don't care?
I don't care. I like the other room, but I like not moving too, so I don't care.
Well, I think just for the sake of this class, we're gonna have to go to the other class. Like we're gonna have to because I didn't tell people to come here.
Okay.
So for next class, we will be in the other lab. My voice is not as gravelly as last week.
Technically, you didn't tell me we were gonna be back in another class. Think about it.
That's not how it works.
I guess.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, before I stop sharing, yes.
When I go to total cost, calculate total, calculate totals, you click on.
Total cost, calculate totals.
Anything else? Anything else?
That's it.
It's on Thursday.
Okay.
Are you formatting it correctly? You have to go to sorting? Is this what you're doing?
I don't know yet.
Sorting. I don't know if this.
Sort by family.
Can do it till
Header.
last week of this.
Uh-huh.
Then by family type.
The thing that you're talking about? Oh, yeah, the
Sometimes
26.
ascending,
Yeah. That's not.
grand totals,
Yeah.
grand
Well,
totals.
God.
God.
I haven't started that.
Got it?
Honestly, I have no idea.
Okay, boom. Ooh, grand total
I need to
4.
sort it. I need to sort with it.
Counting my grand, oh, you're stupid.
Are we good?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, you might want to end your recording, Augustine.
Yes.
Yo, Professor,
Yo,
do you know anyone that works for,
who's asking?